but you don't lose that feel and connection to the ground under your foot. So when you... Welcome back, folks. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. As we all head off into another frustrating lockdown at the channel, we're going to try and keep you entertained and motivated through this tricky time. So we are back with a shoe review, and it seems like ages since I stood in the studio and filmed a shoe review, so I'll try and remember what to do. But today we are bringing you Run4Adventure's 200-mile review on the Hoka One One Torrent 2. We've already done our 50-mile in-depth review on the Torrent 2, but we've also done a video where we compared the Torrent 2 against another popular trail running shoe from Hoka, the Speedgoat 4. If you want to find out any more in-depth information about the spec of this shoe, it's definitely worth going and watching them two videos. But for now, let's dive into this review and find out how the Torrent 2 has held up to all that mileage. We're going to start from the top with the upper, and then we're going to work our way down the shoe. So the Torrent 2 is a lightweight trail running shoe from Hoka. It comes in at 265 grams in a men's UK 8.5, and it comes with a very lightweight and breathable upper. And the upper is probably one of the features that has changed the most when you compare the Torrent 2 to the original shoe. So the upper feels and looks a bit plusher. The weave on the mesh construction is a little bit tighter, and I personally think it's holding up to the mileage a little bit better than the original shoe. Not that the original shoe was bad, but I think having this rubber overlay on the lower part of the upper has really helped when it comes to durability at that flex point of the shoe. There's no gluing or stitching issues at all on the upper, and it looks like it's holding up really well after 200 miles, which is always a good thing to see in our running shoes. Also, another thing when it comes to the upper, when you compare the Torrent 2 to the original shoe, I feel the Torrent 2 gives me a much more sort of dialed in and specific hold around that midfoot. And after even 200 miles, I still feel really connected to the shoe. This was an issue when it came to the Torrent 1 for me. I felt like after 100, 150 miles, the upper had stretched and given a bit, and I had to pull them laces in super tight to try and get that shoe sort of connected and to stop any lateral movement while I was running. And towards the end of the life of the shoe, it got really hard to get that lockdown around the midfoot. This hasn't happened at all in the Torrent 2. Now, I'm not overly wide in foot shape, so that might not have happened if you're wider in the original shoe. But for me, I feel the Torrent 2 gives you a much better lockdown and specific hold around your midfoot. So all in all, I'm really impressed with the upper on the Torrent 2, especially when you compare it to the original Torrent. You know, it's softer, plusher, more comfortable, better fitting, and it's looking like it is a lot more durable. But let's move on to the midsole. Like the previous version, the shoe comes with Hoka's Pro-Fly midsole. So we've got sort of softer compound on the heel to soak up a bit of that impact, especially if you're running downhill. And then we've got that firmer compound under the forefoot, so we feel a bit more connected, a bit more responsive, especially when we're running on technical trails. Don't get me wrong, this is still a soft cushioned trail running shoe, but not as deeply cushioned or as softly cushioned as the other trail shoes in the Hoka range. They pitched the Torrent 2 as their racier, more stripped back trail running shoe, and I really like the balance of the cushioning in this shoe. It gives you a nice soft ride underfoot, but not enough to take away all that ground feel and connection. So all in all, cushioned but connected. The midsole is holding up pretty well in the Torrent 2, and we've got to remember this is a lightweight, soft trail running shoe, and I've run it on some pretty technical, tough, challenging coast path terrain in them 200 miles. But what I will say, a similar thing is happening to that midsole that happened in the original shoe as well. After about 180, 200 miles, you start to take a bit more impact through this midsole compound. So it's not super uncomfortable, but especially if you're running down a technical hill, picking up speed, and if you're to hit something sharp sticking out of the ground or the edge of a sharp rock, you can take quite a lot of impact through that midsole compound. I personally feel the Torrent 2 would really benefit from a bit of added protection in that midsole under your forefoot of a rock plate. I know it would add a little bit of stiffness initially and it would add a bit of weight to the shoe, but what it would also add is quite a lot of protection. I think it would make the shoe a lot more comfortable on technical trail, especially on longer runs, and I think it would make that midsole a little bit more durable. So something similar to what Saucony use on the Peregrine 10, just a nice thin, flexible rock plate worked into that forefoot of the midsole to give you that little bit of added protection. So if you're watching Hoka, let's get a nice rock plate worked into that midsole of the Torrent 3. Right, last but not least, moving on down to the outsole of the shoe. This is an area that's slightly changed again compared to the original Torrent. Hoka made the lugs a bit more aggressive in shape and layout, and I think it's had a really big impact and really improved the level of grip when it comes to muddy conditions. Obviously there is shoes out there that will handle muddy conditions a bit better than the Torrent 2, but I think it's handled it really well. I think grip on trail shoes is a really tricky thing, especially if you live and run in the UK with all our changeable weather conditions. I run on a big mixture of terrain in my trail shoes. It might be tarmac, technical coast path, muddy, wet trail. Even now and again I'll throw in a bit of wet woodland with super slippery tree roots just for good measure. So as you can imagine, grip on my trail shoes is super important, especially when I'm moving at speed over all them different types of terrain. And I feel the Torrent 2 has handled all of the above exceptionally well. Yes, Hoka could increase the length of this lug for muddy conditions, but I think that might be a bit detrimental when it comes to the grip of this Hoka sticky rubber on rock and wet rock, which is pretty good as it stands. Durability of this outsole, really impressed with it. Wear is very, very slight after 200 miles. Got a bit of wear on the outside edge of the heel where I tend to wear my shoes quite often. But all in all, I've been really impressed with the performance and the level of grip on the outsole of the Torrent 2. So that is a bit of information about how I felt putting 200 miles into this lightweight trail running shoe from Hoka One One. But let's wrap this up with a quick conclusion. I personally think the Torrent 2 is a really well-rounded trail running shoe, and it's a trail shoe that can be run all year round, which is quite hard to find nowadays. Over the years, I've also worked out it's a really consistent shoe. So in store, most people who put it on love the feel, love the fit, and they love the weight of the shoe. All the guys that have taken it and run it have been really impressed with the performance and had a pleasurable experience. If the weight of your trail shoes is super important and top of your list and you like that sort of no shoe feel, then it might be worth trying out the Torrent 2. It's lightweight, but it's still got a good level of structure, support, and cushioning. I'd be really happy to take this shoe up to say 50 miles. I think if it had a plate in that forefoot, I could probably run it a lot further. But that's just personally my opinion. I know lots of guys who've run this shoe a lot further than 50 miles and they've had no issues. The Torrent 2 retails in the UK at £110, which I think is pretty good value for a trail shoe that you can run all year round. So if you're looking for that trail shoe to run on lots of different surfaces, take you through all the seasons, or you are looking for your first ever trail shoe, then the Hoka One One Torrent 2 is definitely worth checking out. So that is a wrap on another shoe review at Run4Adventure. Don't forget guys, if you want to find out any more information about the Torrent 2, we've done a couple more reviews on the channel featuring the shoe. They're definitely worth checking out, and we've left a link in the description for those. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed it guys, give us a big thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. And if you're not subscribed already, why not hit that subscribe button and come and join the Run4Adventure family. We would love to hear your feedback. Have you run in the Torrent 2, or did you run it in the original Torrent? How are you finding the shoe? Do you find the second version a bit more comfortable, a bit plusher, but do you still have that same problem with impact through the midsole after about 180 miles? Get in the comments and let us know. The Run4Adventure and CL running caps are selling out quick guys. They come in 4 different colorways: green, black, purple and royal blue. There's only a handful of caps left in some of them colorways, and they would make the perfect present for any runner this Christmas time, but be quick. Also guys, if you're enjoying the content that we are producing on the channel, another great way of supporting us is through our Patreon page. Once you become a patron of the channel, you get lots of great perks along the way, and it's a great way of showing support, and we really appreciate it. Oh, I nearly forgot, top tip when it comes to the Torrent 2, if you're having that sort of impact issue through the forefoot of your shoe after mileage, what I've done, I've taken out the original insole, which was super thin and pretty useless, and I've put in a much more substantial insole with a bit of forefoot protection. It really has made a big difference when it comes to impact in the shoe. But for now guys, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting the channel. We will see you in the next video. But as always, stay safe, stay positive, and keep on running.